It is 6 o'clock, and I'd like to open the Tuesday, February 6th regular planning board meeting and also public hearings. We are being recorded per Mass General Law, and we're being audio and video recorded. So first up are administrative items. First is Sewell's Way Solar, file number 20-005 SP-S. The applicant is requesting a 12-month extension. Do we have anybody here from that?
Sure. This is Rich Tabzinski with Atlantic Design Engineers. We were the engineers for the project back in 2021 and 2020 when the project was being reviewed and the permit was issued by this board. And we had submitted a letter just requesting on behalf of the applicant a 12-month extension for the project to start construction. As you know, the board's regulations require that the construction begin within 3 years of the initial permit issuance. That would be, permit was issued on March 4th, 2021. So the permit will essentially be expiring in March 4th, 2024. So due to interconnection issues, which we outlined in an email to your planner, that they just haven't been able to start construction within this period of time. And so they're requesting a 12-month extension. They expect some resolution on the interconnection studies with the Department of Public Utilities and Eversource. They expect that to have some resolution in the first quarter of 2024. And so but knowing utility companies that may not come to fruition in that time period, but that's what they're expecting. So at this point, they just requesting simple extension, 12-month extension of their permit.
Okay, planners, what do you suggest?
So I would recommend to the board that the planning board vote to extend their special permit for large scale solar until March 4th of 2025. Their low impact development site plan approval has also expired, and they actually submitted today their refile for the low impact development site plan approval. So with that coming up and that filing coming in, I think it's feasible, and the right thing to do is would extend their special permit so they have another year on there to commence construction.
Okay, so their site plan review is not being extended, expired.
It expired, so they have to refile. Yes.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board?
Want a motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
I move to grant a 12-month extension for the special permit large-scale solar for Sewell's Way from March 4th, 2023 to March 4th, 2025.
Second. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Next is the Westport Harbor study final report.
So Weston & Sampson has submitted their final report for the harbor water study dated January 25th of 2024. And I'll just give a breakdown of what the report summarized. It's basically just the summary of the whole project that started in the summer of 2022 and just wrapped up. So the final report was relating to the future development of a potential community groundwater supply source for the Westport Harbor area of the town. Development of a future community groundwater supply source using funding available from ARPA was determined by the town as a means of supporting the hydrogeologic and engineering services necessary for locating a potentially viable and safe alternative drinking water supply for meeting the combined needs of the 3 historic private community groundwater supply systems of the Westport Harbor Water Association, Pond Meadow, and the Ocostic Water System, which experience water yield and/or quality issues resulting from their proximity to the marine environment of Buzzards Bay and the affiliated limited groundwater resources occurring in the area. Weston and Sampson conducted services in a phased manner that included characterizing the hydrogeologic conditions in the Westport Harbor area relative to the ability to support a future community groundwater supply in order to support the needs for the 3 private well water supplies. They identified and prioritized the locations for future well installations based on potential yield, water quality, and accessibility. They provided for consideration of relative well site location prioritization, cost estimates for the installation, hookup, treatment requirements, and permitting. And they conducted a preliminary hydrogeologic evaluation of one of the potential groundwater source sites identified for further future consideration. Based on the preliminary evaluation results in connection with phases 1 and 2, there were 8 potential well sites that were identified and mapped, and related recommendations were provided in memos. Phase 3 provided project costs for the 4 potentially most favorable well sites. The work completed in phase 4 identified that a potentially viable groundwater supply capable of meeting the current demands of the Westport Harbor Water Association system and possibly the Pond Meadow system was located at 755 River Road on private property. The Westport Harbor Water Association is now continuing to pursue the development of a private community groundwater supply at the location with its own source of funding contingent upon Mass DEP approval. So.
Thank you. I think it has been a very thorough investigation, and I think it was well worthwhile doing, and I hope that it provides adequate source of water for the foreseeable future. I think it's not going to be a long-term solution because of sea level rise, but that will be for another day. So, thank you for that. Next up is peer reviewer consulting engineer proposal.
So as you all know, we issued an RFP for a new consulting engineer. We're still working with field engineering and SW Cole as well, but at the end of the year, SW Cole will no longer be taking on new peer engineering reviews from the town, so they'll wrap up the outstanding commitments they have with the town. But moving forward, I do not think they're going to be continuing this service. So we issued that RFP, we contacted 11 firms, and we received a proposal from MBL Land Development. They obviously met the submission criteria. They demonstrated a strong background with civil engineering, and although they don't have an extensive history working with municipalities, they obviously have a very extensive history working with the kinds of projects we review, and therefore the kinds of projects we would be asking them to do the peer engineering review services for. And it also, it's beneficial to note that they came recommended by SW Cole, who is our outgoing peer reviewer. So you all have had the entire packet, so 100 and some pages long, that they had submitted to us. But if there aren't any concerns, I'd like for the planning board to entertain a motion to initiate peer reviewing contracting services with MBL Development.
Okay, I did read through it, and I think it's the second time I've seen that. I think I saw it when it came in. I would like to get the opinion of others who have experience with this, if they've taken a look.
I read it, and I read 99% of it, and I didn't see any issue either. I mean, I thought, as Michael stated, that they may not have had direct experience in working for municipalities, but in doing the types of things that we were asking them to do, but they have general experience that would certainly qualify them for it.
Yeah, I would agree, Mark. I looked over some of the things that they've done, like they've done multiple work for the Bay Coast Bank. And I think that if they continue to do that, have continued to do that, that says something about their reliability, so.
Also on a note about that, just on the staffing side of things, there will be a dedicated staff member at MBL of sort of like, would basically be replacing Derek Mello. You know, be that kind of person who's a consistent figure that the town would work with. And I told them that sometimes, just due to unforeseen events with receiving applications, on a timeline that we wouldn't necessarily like to work from, they said we can work with that if there has to be a short-term turnaround. You know, obviously they don't prefer, no one prefers to do things last minute, but they said that they're open to work within the town's timelines if those kinds of events come up.
Okay, so hearing no thoughts otherwise, I would entertain a motion, if that's what we would like.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we retain the services of MBL based on the planner's thorough review and evaluation.
I would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, last of administrative items is Zero Division Road, file number 22-001 SP, SW Cole Construction Report Inspection.
You can put the photos up, I guess, yeah. No, I can just read it first. So the solar array at Zero Division Road has started construction on that property. So once a week, they have our peer consultant, they provide an update for our peer consultant. And so weekly inspections are taking place. So far, the gravel roadway and subsequent temporary laydown areas have been installed to the proposed solar array. Tree and brush removal are ongoing. Stabilizing fabric has been installed under the gravel material. A temporary stream crossing has been placed with timber mats and riprap, and erosion control is ongoing as clearing work progresses. And there's associated photos with that.
Is action required on this?
No, just an update.
Just an update. They've been doing a really excellent job of keeping the town abreast of what's going on over at that site. They're very communicative, so I've been impressed with their implementation of the project so far.
Okay, thank you.
So is this the last review from SW Cole?
No, so SW Cole is going to stay on the projects that they currently are doing. They're just not picking up any new ones.
Okay, understand.
Okay, next up will be the 6:15 public hearing. Plat 52, Lot 20A, file number 23-031C. This is continued from October 17th, 2023 and December 12th, 2023. This is for Marot Drive at 0 Drift Road, located between 278 Drift Road and 312 Drift Road.
Good evening. My name is Attorney Kevin Medeiros. My office is located at 286 Union Street, City of New Bedford. I have here Matthew Pike, engineer on this project. He's gone before the board regarding the subdivision in the past. I was just brought in to go over a few issues with the board. The locus, for those of you who are not familiar, it's approximately 3/4 3/4 of an acre north of the Charlotte White extension. It's located on the east side of Drift Road. You have, to the north, you have the rear property lines to the homes on Fallon Drive. To the west, you have a few lots with frontage on Drift Road. And then to the south, you have a large parcel, privately owned parcel. And then to the east, you have a 30-acre parcel that's owned by the town of Westport, which currently has, and it's in detail there, and it runs right along, runs along the center of Marot Drive, the proposed Marot Drive, and then veers off a little, and then goes back to the property line to the rear of Fallon Drive, as you can see right there. So currently, this 30-acre parcel that's owned by the town is landlocked. It has approximately 800 feet of river frontage on the Westport River. It is landlocked, but does have a prescriptive easement, which allows intermittent use of that easement to access that land in the rear. And it's accessed mostly by the town highway department. From what I'm being told, they go in there occasionally. So this prescriptive easement would only allow occasional traffic into this landlocked parcel, as it is now. So by this board voting in favor of this subdivision, it would allow Marot Drive to provide 300 feet of frontage to this landlocked parcel and allow continuous traffic to this parcel, which would in turn at least triple the value of this land owned by the town. It would now allow the town, if they chose to develop the land. It now has 300 feet of frontage. Well, currently it has no frontage. So there's great benefit to the town by adopting this plan. I'm going to turn it over to Matt. He's going to go into the specifics as to the changes that he's been making with the town's consultant, with the assistant town planner, and he's been working diligently with them in order to make modifications to make everyone happy. So I'll turn it over to Matt.
Good evening. Matt Pike with South Coast Engineering on behalf of the applicant. So as the attorney said, so Marot Drive subdivision, it's located at Assessors Plat 52, Lot 20A. Plat 52-20A is located on the east side of Drift Road, about a mile south of Old County Road. The current lot's accessed from Drift Road by approximately 10-foot wide gravel cart path. The existing lot's undeveloped, primarily comprised of woodland and fallow field, and contains approximately 16 acres. Of that, about 2.5 acres is wetland. Within the existing lot, we're proposing a 40-foot wide paved way, 40-foot wide layout, excuse me, with a 22-foot wide paved way that'll access 9 proposed residential lots. Each proposed residential lot will contain a single-family dwelling that's accessed by an HMA drive off of the paved way. After the previous meeting, basically from the comments that were received, we redesigned the stormwater drainage system. Before we proposed an open channel system, now we're showing a closed conduit system. So the stormwater from the roadway now will be directed to catch basins that lead into the closed conduit drainage system, and that system will discharge into a sediment forebay that will in turn lead to an infiltration basin. In addition to that, to those roadway BMPs, underground infiltration units will be installed at strategic points adjacent to the proposed homes. The stormwater treatment BMPs that receive, treat, recharge the stormwater as required in accordance with the Mass Stormwater Standards, the Westport Rules, Regulations, Government Subdivision of Land, and the Westport Stormwater Quality and Quantity Control Regulation. We're asking for a few waivers. Of those, the first waiver is the waiver from the 25-foot radius at the street line intersection with Drift Road. So due to the layout of Plat 52, Lot 28, the intersection of Drift Road, a 25-foot radius at the southeast street line intersection with Drift Road is not feasible. Thus, the waiver is being requested for that radius. A 25-foot radius is provided at the northeast intersection line. The second waiver that we're asking for is a waiver from the minimum right-of-way width of 50 feet. 40 feet is proposed. And this is also due to the existing width of the lot. In addition to that, we found that the regulation in some parts contradict itself, where it states to use both the table A and the cross-section in several places within the regulation. Table A asks for a 50-foot right-of-way for a residential road, and in the cross-section asks for a 40-foot wide right-of-way. But that aside, we believe that the 40-foot right-of-way will be more than adequate to convey the traffic to these, safely convey the traffic to the 9 proposed lots. The third waiver that we're asking for is a waiver from the leveling area. And this is, the leveling area requires a negative 1% slope for the first 25 feet of the roadway. We're requesting to reduce that to 10 feet. And that's because, again, we're basically in between two existing property lines to the north and the south. You have 40 feet to be able to grade down. Currently, the grade's about 10%, and to reduce it to negative 1%, you lose about 2.5 feet that you have to grade out within those shoulders. So, to the maximum extent possible, we graded down to try to get the largest level area we could, and we came up with 10 feet. Waiver number 4, that waiver is no longer requested. That was mistakenly quoted from the 2010 reg that was to ask to use 5x5 bounds. The current reg allows 5x5 concrete bounds. Waiver number 5, that was a waiver reduction for the 2-year storm event, just at design point 2. Because of the existing topography of the lot, there is a low point at the design point 2 that does provide minimal storage. And basically during the 2-year storm event, I think it increases by 2 hundredths of a cubic feet per second. All of the storm events are reduced greater than 20%, and as a whole, the rate and the volume is reduced by 20% for the entire property. Waiver number 6 is a waiver provision regarding the location of the subsurface water storage tank to be, so the regulation requires it to be within 50 feet of station 0+00. So again, with the limited space, basically for the first 220 to 250 feet of the proposed right-of-way, there's limited area. In addition to that, I think the first house, the driveway is at 3+75. So we're proposing to place the tank at around station 6+00. It'll be within the 750 feet required of all the houses. And waiver number 7, this is the last waiver, is a waiver of the typical cross-section from station 0+00 to 3+00. And again, this is due to the limited space between the first 300 feet or so of the property, where we're proposing to include the sidewalk as was requested at the last, required by the reg to include the sidewalk. But the cross-section shows that there's a 4-foot grass strip between the edge of the road and the sidewalk. To be able to grade that off with limited space would be difficult, so we're just proposing to have the grass strip. It would be the roadway, then the sidewalk, and then the grass strip, just to be able to meet the grade of the adjacent property. And though that's the basic changes that we've made since we've spoken last, and those are the waivers that were requested, and I'll turn it over to the board.
Okay. Members want to go first, or planners first? I guess members. So, I'll start and ask you a question. With regard to the entrance of Marcotte onto Drift Road, this goes between properties that were, the boundaries were created not too long ago.
Correct.
So why wasn't enough room? Obviously, this was anticipated. Why wasn't there enough room left for the village?
The Form A for this lot was performed for the previous owner, Barbara Marcotte. The current applicant had no intention of purchasing this property at that time. There was a purchase and sales on this property prior to that the deal fell through, and that's when the current applicant purchased this property and decided to move forward with developing it. So to answer that, prior to, there was this plan was not, this was not the plan for this property. I don't know what the plan was for the property.
But it seems leaving 40 foot right away to the road would indicate that they anticipated a
There was probably some
development.
intention, yes, correct.
And I guess my other question is, are you looking for a variance for the lot shape at all?
No, I believe this, so all these lots, 100% meet all zoning regulations.
And the roadway,
The roadway does as well.
even though the road right away abuts neighbor's property?
Well, there was some discussion and comments regarding that in the review. I saw that, and again, so basically from 0 to 300, we're along the property line. So there's really no other way to put the right of way. As you get past 300, I believe if you try to jog that down, you eventually will create reserve strips, possibly, which is also against the current regulations. So, and then lastly, as the attorney spoke, by us keeping this road along the edge there, it affords the town was 300 feet of frontage between. So we just think that this, based on the lot shape and size, that this was the best fit placement for the road.
I'd like to just add that the prescriptive easement that's currently there, as you can see, abuts the property line, and that easement's been there for over 100 years. So the roadway does extend a little bit further beyond that easement way, but you can see it comes very close to that property line.
But the easement was just a cart path, really.
It's a gravel easement way, yes, a gravel driveway,
It's
yes.
not a subdivision road.
No,
So,
but they were sort of following that easement way with the roadway.
okay, others?
Jim?
I had reviewed this, and I was very critical about the design before then, and at least the technical aspects, it's still 11 odd-shaped lots, but, I mean, 9, I guess, little odd-shaped lots, but it's they have done the drainage over, they have done all of that. I went through all that review, and I marked up a set of drawings. There's some things that you need to fix. Once again, the design calculations don't match the outfall design. They have different elevations. It's a critical flaw that you need to check, because you're the calculations work and show the reduction in both in volume and in the peak rate that you described. When you look back at the details, you have different elevations on the construction details than you have in the calculations. That has to go back and fit. And also, I've suggested that, and I marked up the calculations and the drawings, and they're in the planning office. So you can take a look at some of those. I suggested that you add a pair of catch basins before you get to the cut road, because the way the design is now, it is very likely that the water will be smarter than the engineering, and the gutter flow will go down the cut road onto the town's property. It'll follow the track of the cut road. So you've got to intercept that. And again, the same comments I made about, well, these lots are compliant. They sure are ugly. I mean, just as the creation of places for homes. These long, narrow lots. I guess the good part of it is most of them will stay in their natural state. But we're hoping to correct that kind of geometry problems in our town meeting.
Absolutely, I'll take a little look at your markups and revise the plans as necessary. I'm sure I overlooked, maybe I made a design change, I'm sure you have to change the detail, but I definitely incorporate that. And I'll check into the cart path there to make sure that I try to outsmart the water. Yeah, I'll do my best.
Water's very good at finding low spots.
Mark?
Yeah, along the lines of what my colleague was saying, the problem I have with this is that you have taken a 16-acre piece of land that actually was part of a very historic section of Westport. It was the part of the old Richard Sisson farm. It goes back to the 1600s. And he owned at one time 900 acres, and this was part of it. His home was across the road, on the other side of Drift Road. And just north of you is Sisson Farm Lane, if you've probably been up there. And well, one aspect of Sisson Farm Lane is if you drive up there, the houses are separated. They're large lots. They have a lot of vegetation, screening, privacy between those lots. Here you've taken this 16-acre piece, you've sliced it into 9 lots, as tight as you could make it. Now, the mistake that I think some people think is that quantity equals maximum profit. I don't think that's always the case. I think you could create half the number of lots. If you had, just as an example, 4-acre lots. Well, my gosh, then a potential buyer would look at them and say, well, here's property I've got flexibility of where I could put my house. I've got flexibility of where I can locate the septic system. I can have room for a separate garage. I could have, I could have a small stable in the back for horses, whatever. I mean, there are many advantages to having fewer, larger lots, because people will pay more for those fewer, larger lots than you will when they see these. If you flip to the next plan here, the next 2 plans, and you can see in detail how these houses, how close they are to each other. They're pushed up next to the road because they can't build, they have to stay out of the buffer zone for the wetlands. And you locate the wells and there's a radius that you have to respect between the well and the septic system. So it leaves you with these, really with no other options than the house locations that you have by the time you build out the septic systems. And I just think that you're taking just a beautiful historic piece of property in this town, and I don't think you're enhancing it. I think you're actually, it's a detriment to the town, and I don't think you will find that that people will pay premium value for these lots, whereas if they were larger, fewer larger ones, you would come out just as well. And I don't know who the developers are, but they could even consider taking, as I've said at previous applications, you could take some of the backland and put it in conservation and take a tax deduction which helps offset the profits from the land that you do sell. So that's my thoughts.
John?
I agree with Mr. Schmidt, and I think my memory isn't all that good anymore, but I think I referred to this last time we discussed it as if someone took a parcel of land and ran it through a spaghetti machine, and we're trying to address that in the future with, as Mr. Daler said, by changing the zoning, but that doesn't help with what we're dealing with here now. I think that, you know, when you'd like to see when people develop property that they look at the environment that they're coming into and they try to do a development that fits in with the neighborhood. And you would hope they come in and say, it's a high bar, but perhaps I can do something that enhances the neighborhood. But certainly that fits in with the neighborhood. And I don't think this does. I don't think it's consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, and I think Mark Schmidt made that point, so I don't think I have to make that point again. But the point I want to make is when you come in and ask for 8 or 9 waivers, you're asking us to be complicit in that. And I'm not sure I want to be complicit in what you're doing by granting waivers so that you can develop something that doesn't fit in with this part of Westport. Why should we be complicit in that by granting waivers from the rules that are designed to protect Westport? Why should we bend all of the rules through the waiver process? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why should we do that? You're asking us to grant all these waivers so you can build something that I don't think fits in with Westport. That makes us, you know, complicit in a project that I'm not sure works. So, you know, if you want to do this without any waivers, well, okay, that's one thing, but why should we be granting a whole bunch of waivers, which puts us, you know, right there with you doing this? That's what I'm asking myself. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ma'am?
I guess I could agree with both my colleagues on, I mean, the value of the lots, if you did less lots, would be greater. It would be something that you really, we don't have much of and can duplicate in town. I mean, we have plenty of this. And one of our problems has been on waivers, where we like to give a waiver if the project will fit better into the community.
Yeah.
Other than that, my colleagues kind of hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, even though these are different applicants, you know, the first of the waiver, or the waiver of the right-of-way, this is sort of a self-imposed hardship. That is, the owner of the land left a 40-foot right-of-way. They didn't actually leave a right-of-way. They left something that looks like a right-of-way. What they did was they designed the division of a parcel that had the appearance of a road, but they didn't come in and ask for a road. And then they tried it first in 2021, in which they just had a lot line that wrapped around the cart path as it exists. And this parcel was labeled not buildable because it had no frontage. And then somebody rethought that's not a good idea, and they created the boundary between the parcel that's up on the street. The geometry that you see on the north side of the road there was no Marot Drive. They just divided, they owned the whole thing, and they just divided off a street front parcel with the curved geometry for the appearance of a road. And then they sold that, and now you come in and ask for a waiver because all I've got left is a 40-foot right-of-way, but you had the whole parcel. You could have created any way that you wanted to create. So, you know, yes, you come as the subsequent owner, and this is what the parcel looks like, but, you know, it is, and the difficulty is that we can't do anything about that. That is, people can divide the land the way they want to divide it, as long as it creates a lot which is compliant with the zoning. We don't have the authority not to approve that. So we don't actually approve, we just endorse it as compliant with the zoning. So we created that, and then now you come along, and it's the geometry that the owner created is now a hardship that you're seeking a waiver from. And we also don't deal with a lot of, we don't have the authority to deal with the development of the lots, the siting of the houses, the septic systems, the wells. Those things belong to other jurisdictions. But in your proposed development, the septic systems are on the street front, the wells are in the back so that you have sufficient 100-foot separation, but that puts the wells down gradient from the septic systems. You know, and we see this all the time before the planning board of how this land is divided, in which the applicants look at the zoning ordinance and the subdivision rules and regulation, and in their mind says, this is a geometry quiz. You know, how many lots can I get out of this piece of land that makes things that literally compliant with the zoning? And that's what you've done. I think these things are literally compliant with the zoning. You know, but good planning is not a geometry quiz. Building neighborhoods is not a geometry quiz. Building the future of Westport is not a geometry quiz. These things comply. You may be able to make us approve this, but it is not good planning. I didn't mean it to be a sermon, but those are my comments.
So, from my perspective, what would fit here with the 40-foot road access way is a rural residential lane, which could be unpaved or not paved, could be paved or not paved, and could give frontage to 4 houses. And I think that those 4 lots would be more valuable than this. And I think the construction cost of the road would be considerably less. And you wouldn't have to have the road border your abutter's property. You'd still have to provide an easement to the town land, and I don't think the town has any desire to make that more valuable. I think they would like to keep it as it is. And I would hope that you would consider to withdraw this without prejudice and come back with a different plan. That's just me, I'm only one person. But I think that a rural residential lane would be much less costly, wouldn't have to be as long, and you could get 4 lots off of it. And it would fit in the right of way.
I'd like to say that, I have, so the abutting property, Fallon Drive or Fallon Way, you look at those lots, they're long, narrow lots, similar to these. These are a little bit longer, but we're dealing, our hardship here are the wetlands. We have to work around these wetlands. So,
It isn't a hardship. You bought this property knowing that they're there.
no,
I mean, it's not as if you had something that happened to the property and now you have a hardship.
but wetlands can be considered a hardship. Before the zoning board of appeals, wetlands are a hardship. They're something that it's nature's made, and you have to work around it when designing subdivisions or when building a home. But going back to Fallon Drive, they're narrow lots. They've met all of the requirements. The engineer sat down, took the town's bylaws, and it said you needed X amount of feet for a side lot, you need this amount of frontage, you need front setback, rear setback. We've met all of those requirements. Now, if the lot is somewhat oddly shaped, which they're, at the bottom, they are, but, to make this economically feasible, you have to get X amount of lots. By reducing it to 4, it's not gonna work.
But this is, what Mark Schmidt said is fewer lots may actually make you more money. And for you to come in and say wetlands are a hardship. You ever live next to a wetland? Butterflies, fish, views, ecosystem services provided by wetlands, and you come in and say, no, they're a hardship.
For development purposes.
Yeah, they enhance the environment around which you're going to place a house. They make the house more valuable. You're just interested in, I want to build 9 houses. If I could, I'd build 29 houses. Because I just want more.
Back to this point of 4 lots could be more valuable. They've done their studies, the study with 4 houses, could bring in slightly more, but it won't offset the
Won't
cost-
offset what?
the cost of development.
You just want to maximize profit. And it's the way of thinking that looks at a wetland as a hardship instead of something that is good for the land and good for Westport. That's what I object to. When you start saying that building more houses is what's good for Westport and wetlands are a hardship, you know,
But this
we
board
got
in
a
the past,
problem here.
the board in the past.
You bought it with the wetlands. They were there long before you
Oh,
were.
absolutely, no, they were. But it goes to why it's designed this way. You know,
Yeah,
and
you're
the
right.
board in the past has granted these waivers on similar, not similar, but on subdivisions in the town. So it's not like we're asking for something that the board has never granted.
So if we have granted a waiver for anything, we should grant it to anybody for any reason? I don't think that makes sense.
No, not for any reason, no. And that's why we're here, and we're working with the town consultant, we're working with the assistant planner. We've made many modifications to the plan. Came back with those changes, and, you know, I'm not sure what else we can do.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, we just want to say that, as the attorney stated, so in general, I think these waivers are generally, you know, granted. And the bulk of them stem from the first 200 feet of the roadway, which would, that's set. There's no way to get any more than 40 feet. And then in addition to that, I think the biggest hurdle here that, I mean, we maybe have seen as the biggest hurdle is the 50 to the 40 feet. And I think, again, that just stems, there's a discrepancy within the regulation, that this complies with the regulation just as much as it doesn't regarding the 40 or the 50.
Okay, we have made our thoughts known, so I'd like to hear from anybody else who would like to speak. Yes, sir. So we keep it to 5 minutes, and you have to identify who you are and where you live.
I have a PowerPoint presentation. It'll take exactly 4.5 minutes. I'll say a couple seconds. I'm David Dorsky. I'm in a butter at 11 Fallon Drive. Which is here. That's me.
When I plug this in, David, it says I need to format the drive. Formatting will erase all data.
Can I put your HDMI?
Yeah, that's sorry about that.
don't think we've started the clock on you 4.5 minutes.
I think we need a 14-year-old.
I have a script, I don't have time, so I
Yeah.
don't want to waste your
All
time.
right.
Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so, this is my property, an aerial view of Marcotte Land, Town Pit, Drift Road, Fallon Drive. So I have 4 objections: location of the street along the periphery of the property, intersection turn radius is dangerous, the waiver is dangerous, flooding of my abutting property by stormwater despite the design, and the design is not compatible with the neighborhood. First, proposed Market Drive runs along the periphery of the subdivision land for most of its length and for the entirety of my property border. This violates the Westport subdivision regulations that explicitly state that proposed subdivision streets shall not be located along perimeter boundaries of the subdivision. Neither of the 2 potential exceptions apply. This is a fatal flaw in the proposal that should lead to its rejection. Second, the proposal seeks a waiver of the 25-foot turning radius of the intersection of Market Drive and Drift Road at the southern corner. As you know, Drift Road is a main thoroughfare with a speed limit of 30 miles an hour that is rarely observed. As a constant user, pedestrian, runner, and driver, I observe the traffic typically travels at 35 to 40 miles an hour through this section.
Bingo.
Sorry.
Might be the HDMI cord that's not receiving a signal.
It's going so well, too. Shows the turning radius, and this is the rule from the subdivision regulations that you're familiar with. As it is, there needs to be a sign warning traffic approaching the intersection of trucks accessing the town pit, and they access the pit a lot. There's a lot of traffic. I see it every day from my deck. Clearly, it's recognized. Imagine what will it be like with the traffic accessing a 9-residence village. This is what the entrance looks like now. Note that there's a limited sight distance to the north because of the rise in the bend in the road. Same thing for the southern approach, with an even sharper bend reducing the sight distance for this intersection. Here's what the traffic going north looks like, obeying the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. They saw me when I was filming this, that's why they were slow. This is traffic going south. They also saw me and kept to about 30 miles an hour. That's the entrance, you know where the entrance is. This shows the approach to the intersection from the south, where the turn radius would be reduced. Imagine that a vehicle is poking its nose out, looking to the turn right. A non-compliant turn radius at this intersection will result in crashes. Crashes at 30 to 40 miles an hour can involve fatalities. We should not allow this. This is exactly 30 miles an hour. Third, despite elaborate plans to control stormwater on the proposed Marcotte Drive, watershed by the street that is along and above the grade of my property will flood my backyard. No amount of stormwater runoff mitigation will prevent flow of water onto my land. My backyard will be turned into a swale. You can see two views from the road to my house and from my house to the road. Notice that I'm below, I'm 2 feet below the grade of the road. and you're going to build the road up. The Homeowners Association of Marot Village will have to maintain the drainage system, but will they? Will I have to hold them accountable to clear the drainage system that involves subdivisions? Furthermore, there's a vernal pool at the back of my land that will turn into a pond, increasing the proliferation of mosquitoes that can transmit Eastern equine encephalitis and West Nile virus, which are found in this town. Depending on the HOA, to maintain the drainage system is fraught with difficulties. The drainage system is complex. Costs of maintenance will be high. Part of the proposed drainage system involves the use of compost tubes, a messy arrangement that should only be temporary. Otherwise, they'd have to be replaced regularly by the HOA, again, depending entirely on their concept of due diligence. Lastly, as the board noted at the October meeting, the overall design of the subdivision is not compatible with the neighborhood. The 9 homes will be crowded together, as I've shown on my editing of their map, because of the awkwardly elongated lots, as if created by a pasta machine cutting the parcel into strips. This plan seems to be aimed at maximum profit and not the enhancement of the neighborhood or the town. Please reject it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Good evening, Chair Whiten, members of the planning board. My name is Jake McWiggin. I live at 397 Drift Road, and then I also have a house at 202 Drift Road, born and raised at 210 Drift Road. So pretty close, pretty familiar with the area. I spoke to the board before the chair was absent at that one, so I don't want any belabor any points that I covered at that point. But some of the presentation that was given to you guys earlier is a bit of a concern. Starting out the presentation by essentially saying the town's going to triple their value of their land and you guys get to use it now. I find that a little bit of a, a little bit illegal in my opinion, but that's it. But if we look at it, as everyone else has pointed out, when we were back here in, I guess, the October timeframe, numerous members of the board addressed the look of it, the house lots, the 9 house lots, and how that just didn't fit with the community, didn't fit with that area. And essentially told the applicants to go back, let's try to readjust this, and the only thing that got readjusted was drainage and coming back and asking for 7 waivers. They must have as many waivers as they have house lots at this point. And I think that's got to be a concern. You look at the neighborhood, you look at Fallon Drive, you look at Sandpiper. Fallon Drive is quoted. Fallon Drive is over half a mile long. There's 17 houses on there, and none of them are looking into each other's windows. I mean, this thing looks like Lincoln Park Place, and and we know they had some zoning, waivers because of other things they put on that area. I live on 397 Drift Road, so right after you pass Kirby Brook. Then on the right, there's a lane that goes up there. Old Jack Porter developed most of those houses in there. Beautiful, as you mentioned, rural lane. We maintain it. There is no HOA. I fill in potholes like I'm DOT in February and March. But we have about 6 houses up there, and we're all sitting on 5.5 acres. They are longer strips, but I don't see anybody back there. And I believe, to the chair's point, that that's going to be, the best use of this land and less of an impact to the entire neighborhood. The one concern that I do have is continuing dense development that we're seeing, with this development here is hydrology studies. You guys earlier today in the agenda focused on the Westport Harbor and the water plant there. I mean, there is not an infinite amount of water under that ground, and we all are trying to deal with it, trying to figure out how to deal with that. And I think that maybe this is something, whether it's 4 house lots, 6 house lots, 9, whatever it ends up being, maybe there's going to be a hydrology study on this. There is a neighborhood farm, which is right up on Drift Road. They've had, I know, some water issues, and they've actually added another well. Great. I mean, they're great for the neighborhood, great to do business, but that's a situation that we do have where you have just so many people tapping into that one area. The fact that we talk about how it wasn't economically feasible, That plot of land was purchased for $330,000. So 4 house lots would probably be about $300,000 a piece. So right there, well, we got a $900,000 profit. So I don't want to hear about economically feasible and how we can't make this fit with the neighborhood, fit with Fallon Drive, and fit with Amy's Way. Like I said, I've been there for all the development. I saw the Sandpiper get developed, and my mother's house is the first one essentially considered on Fallon Drive. So again, I appreciate all your honest feedback and analysis of this plan, and hopefully we can get to something that everyone in the neighborhood can accept and, you know, that fits with the character of Westport in that area. So thank you, Member of the Planning Board. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Planners?
So staff recommends that the public hearing be either continued to a date and time certain in order to allow the applicant to make the necessary revisions to the plan that have been called out in staff's review, in field engineering's, and the planning board's recommendations and opinions. Staff strongly recommends that the applicant reconfigure the roadway so that it does not lay on the perimeter boundary of the subdivision. Also, to Bob Taylor's comment earlier, that catch basins be installed to intercept the long gutter flow around the curb, which is likely to run down the gravel access path to the existing town lane. And the revisions on the plans for the missing information that was called out in both reviews. And also, staff recommends that the applicant try to reassess how many lots would actually be feasible with possibly less waivers. I know that there are other subdivisions in town that the applicant has mentioned, and maybe in previous correspondence. I think it was Stacy Lane, and just going back in the Google Drive and looking at that decision, that Stacy Lane, the 10-lot subdivision, but that only required 1 waiver from the rules and regs. So if possible, just to go back to the drawing board and see what your options are and how you can reconfigure the project to better fit for the town.
One thing I would also like to add, Jen, is that regarding the discussion of the reserve strips, unlike some of the other requests which do require waivers, the planning board has discretionary authority to grant reserve strips should they find that they are in the public interest. Also, the subdivision regulations lay out that waivers should only be granted in the public interest. So I just wanted to state that for your consideration.
Well, thank you for the reminder.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I appreciate the staff comments on this, and I'd be prepared to move a continuance based on advice from the applicants in terms of how much time they need. But the way I'm thinking about this is that, you know, we do grant waivers all the time. I don't have a problem with granting waivers. I do have a problem with this plan. And so if you guys come back with this plan, I don't feel like granting any waivers. And if you listen to what we all said, then you know, I don't mind a narrower road or some of the other things. But I hope you listen to what we said. I hope you listen to what the chair said. And I hope we see a very different plan when you come back. And if you tell us how much time you need to rethink this, then I'd move for a continuance so you can rethink that, because, you know, we're suggesting significant changes.
We hear you loud and clear, and we're looking for a continuance of 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Okay. What does that look like, Amy?
8 weeks, what's today? Where are we in? Well, we have to make it into April anyway. The 9th or the 23rd, what we have for April.
The 9th and the 23rd, no, the 9th is the election.
Okay,
So
was
it's
it
the 16th and the 23rd.
No, it would be. I think it's either April 2nd or April 16th.
Yeah, you're right.
But I would actually think that maybe April
23rd.
23rd would be better.
Yeah.
April 23rd?
Yep.
April 23rd, is that all right with you?
Absolutely.
What,
6:15.
6:15? Is that all right?
Yep.
So I would, is that all right with you guys?
Absolutely, yes.
So I would move that we continue Marot Drive, Zero Drift Road to April 23rd at 6:15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, planners report?
A couple of months ago, we submitted an expression of interest, I say we, meaning the town and Buzzards Bay Coalition, to the Municipal Vulnerability Action Grant. We met with them and had a debrief on that project last week. They told us that this could potentially be a fundable project. We just need to be mindful of the application, I guess the program design criteria, where we're making sure that the program is designed in a way that we're doing outreach and engagement with communities that would be impacted. And so what we're looking to do here is do some drainage basin upgrades near Forge Pond and culvert upgrades. These are the three at Angeline, Lionsbrook, and Snell Creeks. We've been talking about these upgrades for probably 4 or 5 months now, trying to find funds for them. And so these culverts would be designed to accommodate increased stormwater flows and to accommodate cold water brook flow for them to pass underneath the culverts. So we'll be working on submitting those those applications to the MVP action grant.
Could you move your microphone closer to you?
Sure. Quick update on our Mass Trails grant. We finished that grant application and it came out to be $65,906 grant request for a total project value of almost $82,000. So we'll see what happens with that application. The District Local Technical Assistance Program, we're going to be applying to SERPED's DLTA program to help us with wrapping up our housing production plan, and also, importantly, to help the Conservation Commission and Land Trust renew Westport's open space plan. It expired in the fall, and having the open space plan is a precursor to different funding opportunities related to conservation, and so it's really important to get that renewed.
Is there a dollar figure with that, or is it just?
It's we could convert it into a dollar amount, but it's really SERPED staff assistance. So, and lastly, we have a general, kind of more general item here about planning, pre-meeting planning for East Beach. On March 1st, there's going to be a meeting with Senator Rodriguez and Representative Schmid about what the town's approach at East Beach should be. And what we're looking to do now is just kind of set the agenda and see if there's going to be a quorum for that meeting as well from the planning board. I know there are a number of planning board members who are also on the Climate Resilience Committee, so we just want to make sure that we're not getting ourselves, having any open meeting law issues. So, will you all be available for that meeting?
On March 1st?
On March 1st, it'll be at the Select Board's meeting room, so up the street. And I think it's at 10 o'clock. Okay, it's at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.? I'll be there.
Can I discuss something on this item?
We're going to get to that.
Oh, all right.
Let's do the March 1st thing.
Yeah.
So everybody okay?
I will be in South America.
Okay. You're not coming back for that?
And I'm gonna be in the hills of Vermont, God willing.
Okay. So it'd be
I'll be
myself? You'll be there?
Yeah.
Manny?
I might possibly be able to make it.
So
You're going to be there?
So we'll have to post it.
Okay, yeah, we'll post it as a work session.
Now, we're also having a CRC or
Yeah.
what's CRC?
Yeah, Climate Resilience Committee.
Right.
And so on this topic, the Select Board has asked for advice on what to do with not just East Beach Road, but I think all of them.
Barrier Beach.
Barrier Beach, and both the Select Board and the Climate Resilience Committee. The Climate Resilience Committee meets February 15th, and we're going to talk about it in a minor way at that meeting, and then we're going to schedule a special meeting in March. I can't remember the date. It's the third Thursday, I think, where that will be the almost the entire focus of that meeting to discuss this issue and what we might advise the Board of Selectmen on, any advice we might have that the town should take. I did talk with, and all are welcome. These meetings, of course, are open to the public. The Climate Resilience Committee meets remotely by Zoom, and I'm sure through the planning department, if you're interested in attending, you can ask Amy, and you can get notified of the Zoom link.
It should be on the website.
Or on the website.
With the agenda and the link.
Yeah. And we have some other business on February 15th. We've got a report of the Water Committee on work they've been doing up to date for the last 2 years on how to make Westport more resilient from a water standpoint. But we will also that evening have a little bit of a discussion on the recent storms. I did talk to Mark Rasmussen, who's the head of the Buzzards Bay Coalition today, and I think he's had some discussions with Michael and Jim White as well regarding a potential mass vulnerability grant that I think is interesting, and the application deadline is in March. And he said that the coalition would be willing to put a application together, and I admit I'm on the board. I don't think that causes a conflict, but I would note that they are very good at obtaining grants. They have a good administrative staff and a good track record at working with the state. And he said the application they're thinking of is something they think the MVP program would be very supportive of. And he's thinking of a grant application in the neighborhood of $2 to $2.5 million for the acquisition in a voluntary program of acquiring lots on East Beach Road. And what they do is figure out how to set a price and then offer people who own lots, would you be interested in selling at this price? And if they are, then the lots would not be owned by the coalition, but would be turned over to the town. And the reason I think this would be a really good idea is that if the ocean takes your lot, you don't get any compensation for it. You just lose it, and if you want to get compensation, you can go argue with Mother Nature, and good luck with that. Whereas if the coalition comes and says, here's an amount of money, do you want to sell? Then you get compensation for it. And if it's a voluntary program, that means you have a choice. Do I want to sell, or do I want to take my chances with Mother Nature taking my property? And a number of people have lost their property in one of the storms this past month. So it at least gives people a choice of what they want to do. And it can be a pilot program, and we'll see how that works. So that is something we can discuss as do we want to go down that road and see if offering people a choice makes sense, where the coalition would do the program, raise the money, and anyone who decides to take advantage of that, then the property goes to the town, and it becomes, public beach. So, at any rate,
Yeah.
I thought it was enough to have a wider audience discuss it and see what they think. If there are disadvantages to it that I haven't thought about, which is, of course, likely, then, we'd hear about it.
So I think the issues, as I'm sure you're all aware, on East Beach are very, there's a multitude of issues, and how do you wrap your arms around what to do? And I was at another meeting 3 weeks ago with, and Courtney Roca was there. She's the Southeastern Regional Coordinator for the MVP program that you're talking about. And the town has gotten 2 grants for MVP projects. One was to become an MVP community about 3 years ago. And then the second time we applied for a grant, we got a $50,000 grant to evaluate what to do with East Beach area. What's going to happen? Is there anything that we can do to mitigate the storm and erosion and sea level rise? And the report on that is pretty bleak in terms of what's going to happen there. The only thing that they surmised might be a very short-term mitigation strategy would be to raise the level of East Beach Road so that you would create sort of a dam with the road itself. So the next sequence with MVP, we applied for a grant to get an engineering study of raising East Beach Road. And they declined to give us a grant for that. In the aftermath of that, in talking with them, why did we not get the grant? They said, well, we're not in the habit of funding infrastructure that's going to be underwater. And secondly, they said that what you should be doing, as far as they're concerned, is trying to do some managed retreat. So find out some way to remove the personal property from the beach that's going to be absorbed by sea level rise and increased storms. So when I saw her 3 weeks ago, she said, you know, this might be the time to apply for a grant as the town to fund a managed retreat aspect. And it'd be basically like what John was saying, a voluntary thing, money to compensate people who wanted to get some monetary value from their lot instead of losing it. And she said there'd probably be approval for that kind of funding. And then last week or early this week, I talked to Mark Rasmussen that John was talking about. And he said that they would certainly try to come up with a fund to do that. And now I understand that they're working together, that it would be a nonprofit who would do this, which would be better than the town. The town, I would think, to deploy that money would have to get approval at town meeting for every sale. And that would be crazy. And you'd have to do it, it'd be very hard to administer. But, so a retreat from an area that's going to be inundated with sea level rise and erosion and storms, it seems to me there's three options. One is to retreat all at once, and that would be very expensive. The town can't do that. I don't think we could get a grant to do that. And I don't think it would be popular with people who own property down there, that they could still get a decade or two or more out of use of it. The second one would be to do it on a threshold basis, that if the lot erodes to a point where it's not tenable, then that would be a candidate for to be bought, like John is saying. And the third is to do nothing and just let happen, what happens, happens. And when your lot goes away, you're out of luck. And I don't know which of these three things we should do. That's why we're going to be having meetings with people to try to figure out, and that's why we're talking about it tonight. If anybody has any ideas, we'd like to hear them.
We're also going to be developing a report that'll be available the planning board will send to the select board, and the planning board will provide some recommendations. That'll be a typical planning report. We'll be assessing existing conditions, doing some mapping, looking at the costs of the town for the ongoing maintenance of East Beach Road, and also the costs to material when things have to be rebuilt. Looking at our regulations and seeing where there could be improvements there, and what those solutions are. And I think, Jim, you've outlined some of them.
None of them are super. We got to deal with what we got.
Right.
And so, I think what I've asked Michael to do is generate some maps that outline the whole area. Who has an approved NOI, who doesn't, just need to know who has one, who has an approved septic system, who doesn't, who has a septic system that's not approved, if we know, who has approval for a tight tank, and we can see some of them on the beach now, who had a tight tank that wasn't approved. All these things for the town to wrap their head around what to do down there, we need to map it out, and it also help everybody else, so you know if your neighbors or you or whatever, you know the whole layout of what's happening there. And you've probably noticed stakes out there that the town, the highway department just paid a surveyor to survey the road right of way. And it goes right down the road, and it appears that the actual paved part of the road is in the north part of that, or the north end, side of that right of way. So all those things will be helpful, but I think it's going to take the group, the CRC and the planning board and the select board and Rep. Schmidt and Senator Rodrick's working diligently together to see what kind of money is around, what other options there are, and what's the whole nature of what we have to deal with today versus what we're going to have to deal with in the next 10, 20 years.
Do you want to take any public comment?
Say,
Do you want to take any public comment?
sure, I asked.
I'll go first.
Please. And if you could tell us your name and where you live, and if you have a lot down on East Beach, where
Yes.
that is.
My name is Kevin Curd. I'm the current president of the East Beach Improvement Association. Currently residing 598 Sanford Road, and I do have a lot on East Beach Road. Currently on the north side.
Good.
Possibly in the future, it could be the south side. To your point on gathering information regarding these south side lots, notice of intent exists for every single lot. In regards to septic systems and existing, they are all documented at the Board of Health back in 2019 and 2020. We turned in, the town actually asked us after a previous storm to make sure all tanks were in proper working order, etc., which we did over the course of 2 years. So all that documentation is available. I'd be happy to help the planning board
If you
assemble
could be in
that.
touch with
One of the biggest reasons I'm here is to create an open dialogue with you guys.
Right.
Because over the last month or so, beginning in January 8th at the Board of Selectmen meeting, they kicked the can to you guys. And you guys said, okay, what are we gonna do? Obviously, we all know we need to do something. As concerned property owners and taxpayers, we don't wanna lose our lots. We know we can't fight Mother Nature. So we look to the town for a little bit of guidance and help. Throwing money at a problem is not always the best answer. In this case, it might be the ultimate answer for some of the landowners who have the challenges that you guys described. What I'd like to see is an attempt at some sort of resiliency, some sort of building up. And to the chair's point, yes, it might only be a decades-long solution. We all know that at some point that would probably change. But you know, we're not looking to just roll over and let it happen. You know, we're here to work with you, and we want our voices to be heard. I definitely want to be involved in any future meetings, whether it's with the state representatives. I'd welcome an open invitation, whether it be through the town administrator's office, the Board of Selectmen, or yourselves.
You can do it.
I'm going to give Michael all my information tonight again. I've reached out to other people in various positions. In some areas I've got success, some areas I have not had success. And I'm a little bit disappointed in the way the town has reacted to us, and I'm hoping that'll change. The 3 storms that came, no one expected to hit in the fashion that they did, with the amount of damage equal probably to a hurricane. We did look to the town during those instances for some help. And a lot of the materials that were on those private properties wound up in the town road, which needed to be cleaned. Biggest point being the cobble and the sand. And DEP has informed this town that it was supposed to push that back on the road. Back to the property line, that which the town now on the south side has established. It has 10 to 15 feet on that side, because as you said, the road is to the north. So, we questioned that practice while it was happening, and all that material disappeared. We're gathering evidence to see where it went, what happened, why it happened. It was brought to the highway supervisor's attention. I reached out to various select board members, and the practice continued. So we do have an issue. When you say that people have no property left, there's a reason for it. The tide mark did not change. And if that tide does come in a little bit more, it's because that material has disappeared, quote unquote. If you go down towards the town beach, you'll see mounds of it, and I understand that circumstances needed to be taken because the road was in jeopardy. I had conversations with Chris, the highway supervisor, at that time, and understood that. However, at the end of the day, countless, couple of hundred truckloads, the 3 town dump trucks, went up and down that road and did not put it back where it came from. They took it. You have Town Landing, which you acquired a couple of years ago and filled in at the other end on the way to Gooseberry, now has room for at least 12 more parking spaces, magically and amazingly. We do have an issue that needs to be addressed. We do know that the beach needs to be fortified, needs to be somehow protected. We've made an effort as private citizens, private landowners, to push back what's been left so we can see what we're going to do going forward. We look for some help, whether it be compensation for the material that disappeared. There's different arguments on that. I'd be glad to share them with you at the end of the meeting. But at the end of the day, the Environmental Protection Act and the Mass DEP laws forbid removing that material. So, we're here because we're concerned, just like you are. But maybe our approaches to the answers are a little bit different. But we need to sit down and find out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Because at this point, the days of the beach are numbered. This is a fight. The reason the Beach Association exists started in the 60s. I don't know if you all know the history of it, but it was Horse Neck Beach to go all the way. And it was stopped in 1970 at a town meeting vote. So there's a lot of history. I'd be glad to share it with you. I'd be glad to work with you in any way, shape, or form that we can. But, we have to work together. We can't stick our heads in the sand.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I'm
So-
going to have a seat. You have a question?
What I would like to ask you to do is to share any of that data with Michael so that he can put this on a map so that we can all understand it. Because all of us have never been involved with East Beach at all. And so we have no preconceived notion about what should happen and what shouldn't happen. I am surprised you're telling me that every lot has an NOI. That's over 100 lots. So you're telling me that there's 100 NOIs out there?
I know on the south side, which has been the most vulnerable, and the one that conservation has always pushed, every single lot on the south side, all even number addresses, all have them. Some on the north side do, but not everyone does yet.
Individual NOIs?
Individual NOIs. There is one NOI for the first 10 that was obtained back in 2011 after Hurricane Irene, which, ironically enough, establishes the high water mark, which I have in my hand.
Yeah, that would be important for
Oh,
us
I
to
know, I'm
understand
going to
too.
keep that.
So Okay.
Can I ask you
Yeah,
a question?
Sure.
I used to work with fishermen, and I know that it was always dangerous to assume that they had one position on anything, because very independent people. I don't know what your association is like in terms of, do they all have one position on anything, or are they also independent people? But it's Michael, right? Kevin, sorry, Kevin. Do you think if there were a voluntary program to acquire lots, that anyone, because everyone's circumstances are different, you know, in terms of retirement or moving to different, do you think anyone would be interested in that or not?
I can't speak for anyone as the president of the
Yeah.
association. I wouldn't want to speak to that. It's a possibility.
Possibility?
But on the other hand, if they all feel like I do, because that's our home,
Yeah,
granted their RVs and so on and so forth, but those exist because of the town bylaw.
yeah,
And because of the circumstances being a flood zone, or you probably have cottages back there again.
yeah,
So, that reference of, gee, it's unsightly or whatever, is not by choice.
No, I know, and it's
I know.
historic, and it's been that way for a long, long time.
So, I guess the short answer to your question is, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I'd fight that.
but as you said, you know, this is, you gotta figure, it's a tough thing, because if you look down, I don't know, pick a number, 30 years or something like this, the lots on the south may not be there. And so, at some point, those lots are probably gonna be gone. And the question I'm thinking of is, how do people get compensated for that? Because if the ocean takes them, they don't get compensated.
One point that I would like to make, and there's a study now that's not quite completed, but is underway, going to be completed soon. And when you say you've got grant money available in some aspects, whether it be through the Bay Coalition or grants from the state in one way, shape, or form, we've got Rogers and Schmidt to converse with.
Yeah.
The popular consensus is you've got something that was installed to get to Gooseberry Island 80 years ago.
Yeah,
When you get the force and a 20-foot wave, 20 feet of water comes into Buzzards Bay, the buoy marked it on December 18th at 11 and change, between 11 and 12 in the morning. That water comes in at the full force and comes right up onto the beach, East Beach, West Beach, down towards Allen Pond into Dartmouth. That water's nowhere to go. We all know that there's no sand left on Horseneck Beach or East Beach. We know that the currents have been changed over the decades.
you mean because of the causeway?
I believe that is truly the case, and that is a general consensus.
Well, the coalition is doing a 3-year study, as you know.
So my question is, or maybe more of a statement is, do we go to the coalition and find out if there's money to open that causeway up and see if it changes before you start offering to buy everybody's lot out? Because if you do that, then all of a sudden magically the material comes back.
Well,
And
as you may know, they're in the midst of a 3-year study with BU and Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences to look at that very question and try and figure out sand deposition, sand movement. And so next year is the final year. Now, if they think they have an answer to it, and the answer is it would be better without the causeway, then you still have to figure out, okay, do we remove the causeway or do we turn it into a bridge? You still have to then figure out what do you do with the information.
So maybe the retreat, when he talked of 3 different options, is maybe not the first option of a quick retreat. Maybe it's not even a gradual retreat, but it remains an option while we explore other opportunities.
I think that's possible, but it's still a crapshoot. I mean, no matter what the report says, and if you go through the process of getting permitted to take the causeway out, and it takes 10 years, and then you sit and wait, where's the sand that's gone? Some of it's in Allen's Pond, and some of it's on Gooseberry, and some of it's in the harbor. A lot of it's in the harbor. How long is it gonna take for that to come back?
I think you'd see it's relatively quick. When I say relatively quick, you're not gonna see it in a year or two. You might see it a little bit sooner than that. Again, you know, not to beat that dead horse, but some of that material was taken by man and removed. And now you look at some of the lots, and you guys who don't know the history, as you said yourself, of the entire neighborhood, drive by and go, oh my God, what a shame, it's a mess. They don't have any material to put their camper back. I witnessed what happened. I've got pictures and documentation. So
But
I would look to,
I understand what you're saying, and I know, I saw where Chris put it, okay, across from the life-saving station, in that area right in the corner. And I thought to myself, gee, this parking area looks bigger than it was. But even if you took all of that material and brought it back to East Beach and divvied it up between the lots, there isn't enough material there to make a huge difference. I mean,
some don't need any material.
right.
In my area, I'm in the middle, and it's been pushed back, very minimal. Cobble's available in decent supply. We've brought it to conservation, it's been approved, and we're ready to act as quickly as possible. That's why I made sure every single south side lot has a notice of intent. That way, with their order of conditions, we can achieve the ability for everyone to use their lots this season, all the way down to the end. Problem becomes, how far do you go out in regards to being able to put your property back to where it's used? Those few lots on the end, okay, we have a little bit of a challenge there, but I think they're salvageable. We can't write them off.
Well, I'm not writing anything off. What we're trying to do is understand what's out there, what it looks like, and then make a decision, or not make a decision, make a recommendation to the select board. So it's not up to us, it's up to us to make a recommendation, that's all. And so that, I guess, from the standpoint of you're upset that the town took some stuff that was on town property and took it to other town property instead of giving it back to each individual owner. I don't know how they do that, so I think you have to have you as the president should have a discussion with Jim Hartnett and Chris Gonzalez in the same room and decide if that's possible, the next storm, because there's gonna be a next storm, before it happens, so you don't have the same problem. I don't see how he can do that, but that's up to them.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think the answer lies in working together. I was caught by my colleague when he said, you know, we had the collective we when we were talking about, you know, do we take out the causeway, do we make it a bridge, all that stuff. An interesting aspect of that we is that no one in this room owns that causeway. The town doesn't own the causeway. And we don't have any ability to convert it into a bridge, take a section out, put culverts in. That belongs to the state. And also, I take you at your word, and that everyone has notice of intent on the lots. I don't know what the notice of intent says. And just like we sought, the town sought a grant, it wasn't the planning board who sought it, but the town sought a grant to raise the road and to level it so that the worst thing that can happen in a storm is the waves see the low spot and concentrate energy there. It washes over there. The greatest wave energy is spent on the road and breaks. So you can see that at the east end where it's narrowest. And our thought was if we could just raise slightly and level that, then we would take away that advantage that the waves see of creating a low spot that eats up the east end lots. So, and what did they say? We're not going to give you money for something that's going to wash away. We're not going to give you state money to have something that's so vulnerable. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to say, well, what would the state allow us to do? And is there some collective activity that could stabilize that? So I think the answer is in working together, but I don't see any solution that significantly reduces the vulnerability. We could have 2 more of those events. Nor'easters happen through till April. We could have a couple of more. None of us can do anything about that. But if there is an answer, it lies in working together, because you can be pissed off at the town. You can not like us. All of that stuff is possible, but it ain't gonna get anything fixed. Right? So
open dialogue is something I've expressed right along through the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
And I was looking forward to getting here because I wasn't able to make the last one, and
Yep.
we were the subject of a lot of the discussion. So I reviewed it on YouTube, if you will, and I want to make it a point to be here so we can solve this problem amicably together.
well, we won't. No one's going to be working in secret, so we're glad to get help.
Okay. I'm going to yield any more of my time on. If you guys need to keep your agenda going, if you want to hear from some of the other members that are here.
Please make sure you give your contact information to Michael, and that any data you have, like if you have data on each individual NOI, and when. So is it current? I mean, you might have gotten one 4 years ago. I don't know if they're still current. So
I received a list from Chris Capone 2 weeks ago today.
okay.
Yeah, just for the record, I am working with all different town departments, the assessor's office, conservation, board of health. This isn't gonna be something that is solved by, a report isn't just gonna be developed by the planning board. It's gonna take an effort interdepartmentally across all the town offices to assemble this thing and come up with a recommendation. So
Well, I think it's good to have everything
Absolutely.
all together,
Yeah.
so everybody can see the nature of what we have, so that we know what the possibilities are.
Right, yeah.
Working with them to come up with a solution. Otherwise, everybody looks at it and says, "Oh my God."
Yeah, I mean, and scoping this out, we want to have a well-defined problem and make sure we have all the data that that we need to make a really well-informed decision. As I said, we're working with every arm of the town to get that information.
But Kevin, it's also really important, and we're very grateful because there are an awful lot of people in that association, an awful lot of people down there, and you as the head of the association, for us to be able to talk to you, who are listening to hundreds of people, makes it a lot easier on us to have you, not that we're not going to listen to everyone else, but to have you as the head of a formal association just makes it much easier for us. So thank you for, I don't know what they had to do to get you to be president, but thank you for accepting that challenge.
They all stepped backwards.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm familiar with
Can
that.
I say something?
Yes, you have to come up here to the
All right.
microphone. So again, we need to know who you are, your address.
Yes, my name's Arthur DeMello. I'm a property owner at 30 East Beach Road. And my property is right in the direct line of fire.
Yeah.
The thinnest area.
So what, do you have a different address where you live?
I live in Dartmouth, 5 Crescent Drive, North Dartmouth.
Thank you.
You're about as far east as you get, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's you know, we had a backhoe push the material towards the ocean so that you can actually see how much is missing. This is maybe a short-term idea that I have, but where a lot of that material was taken off the road and put onto the town beach, I also noticed that all that rock that's on the town beach makes it so that the people can't park there anymore. So it's up pretty high. I've noticed a few cars trying to park there and trucks, and the material is in piles. The only way to fix the town beach would be to take some of that material out, because even if you went to try to push it towards the ocean, you'd have so much material there that no one would be able to even use the sandy area. I was just down there an hour before the meeting to take a look at it. Well, not only is it a disadvantage to the property owners, but it's going to be a disadvantage to the people at the town beach. They're just not going to be able to use that beach. There was one truck that was parked, but he was in the road. So the only place he could put his vehicle was in the road. All that nice area there. Now, the option would be for the town to push that rock all towards the ocean. And if they did that, we would never have a chance of getting it back again. Every year I put about 2 truckloads of sand. I have a NOI, and I've had an ongoing one, and I've replenished the beach with whatever Potter's sells that's approved that we can use. And I have been doing that, and it gets cost 1 truckload of sand individually for me is like about $350. I don't know how many square yards that is, but it's expensive. So I probably spent $1,000 this past year, and we spend generally somewhere between $7,000 and $1,000 a year to replenish that portion of the beach. I think a short-term solution would be to replenish the beach. I'm not arguing the fact that in 10 years or 20 years or whatever the prospectus is for that beach, that it may be unusable. There may be not enough property there. But I think I'm not speaking for the other beach owners, nor can Kevin speak for them, but I think we all enjoy our beach, and we have a lot of money invested in it. I don't think we really want to surrender it that fast. Maybe in generations, or a generation here and there, but I'm not sure I would want to surrender.
So, just out of curiosity, when I look at the assessor's map, I see all these lot lines that are in the ocean. The seaward part of the lot is not there already. So, are you on the eastern end?
I'm
As east as you get.
3
Yeah.
properties from the town beach. Yeah, I'm on the east end.
26,
What's that?
26.
30. Yeah,
Okay.
26 is next to me. So it's we lost probably
Just about everything.
quite a bit. Yeah, there's maybe That's probably 30 feet there that's left. And
From the pavement or the?
from the pavement, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 10 feet to the.
Yeah, and actually from the road right of way, you're very close, I mean, to having nothing.
Right.
Um,
We got enough to put, we would have enough to put the trail, and then it just drops off. And then there's another level of sand to the ocean. So it's,
So you're very close to being gone, I mean,
right.
I think.
You can
So-
see where that material, in their case, is extremely valuable. That, so it's just something that we would have to work together to try and solve, which would again give him some assurances and give him some more life to his property.
Yeah, so, I mean, you sat here and listened to us quibble about lot configuration and all that stuff. And when we work here, we have to deal with our zoning bylaw, which has requirements for area and depth and upland and, all that stuff. And, if you were a lot anywhere else in town, you'd have to have a front yard setback of 25 feet. In your case, right now, you don't have 25 feet from the road right away. And so we have to kind of figure out, okay, is this whole area a special case? They don't have to live up to the setbacks? And so these are the kind of things we have to think about as a town, because right now it's just been
But there's no.
haphazard, so.
Do you apply that when there's no permanent dwelling? Or does that actually apply with no dwelling whatsoever?
So
There's no
I think we have
foundation.
to figure out, you use, I don't know if you call them RVs or manufactured homes, or what do you call them?
A combination
A
of.
combination of everything. I think RVs are different than manufactured homes. Manufactured homes are not travel trailers, so they don't have license plates and lights in the back. And RVs do, so RVs can
If you
really.
have one, it does have lights, I apologize. It has a plate, license plate and lights, just to say.
So,
I just don't want,
no,
I don't want any.
I know there's a whole bunch of
misunderstandings
different
about
kinds of things out there, I'm just trying to see, in general, we've been talking about this with Michael. What are the requirements for these lots, for having a manufactured home, or a RV, or a travel trailer, or whatever you wanna call them? And he was thinking that if it's has a license plate, it's a travel trailer, or an RV if it has a motor. And there's no setback requirement for that. If it's a manufactured house that is not a travel trailer, then you really need a building permit to put it on the lot. That's what he's thinking. I'm not sure if that's right yet, but we're trying to figure out how all this stuff is supposed to work.
The fact that they're portable, I think would remove the requirement of anything like that. It's never been suggested in the past. So that's something Michael and I can try to find the answers and bring it back to the next planning board meeting. And, we'll work towards finding the right solutions and the right things, because, this was all designed by the forefathers decades ago to allow people to be able to use their property in the event of,
When the
okay,
state-
we're not gonna build a structure in a flood zone.
When the state took
Horse neck.
Horse Neck
This
Beach.
goes back to the sixties.
We're all required to have a trailer permit every year. We pay $60
I know,
for that.
so, I mean, just, in some respects, some of the lots are so small that the trailer actually goes on to the town right away.
Which there is an existing lease that those landowners were required to sign for $1,
Yeah.
which kept the town from being indemnified for anything.
Right, Well, that would be good to know.
So
Do
that
you have
exists.
copies of those?
I'm sure we can find it.
If you could find one or two, because
And again,
town hall can't find any, so.
just to refer back to something Mr. Bowles said earlier, and I believe he mentioned it as well in the previous case. Waivers are not your business. 1 or 2 versus 10 or 12 might be an option. Just something to consider, a short-term solution.
I think we're gonna have to. It may be different for the ones on the ocean side versus the ones on the land side, or the wet side, or whatever you call it. So,
Can we
Anyway.
give any of the other constituents
Sure.
an opportunity to speak? Anybody else? Thank you very much for
okay, thank you.
the opportunity.
You want to go?
My name is Paul Alvarez, from 18 Culture States Drive in Berkeley. I also own the property at 18 East Beach. I'm literally the first one closest to the town beach, away from the lifeguard station. Chairman, I know you said that the lot of material was brought over to the life station and extended some lots, but there was quite a bit brought over to the other side as well. And the town has these massive block boulders that the highway put there to protect that curve in the road. And I know they're not supposed to be there, we can't put them in ourselves, but those things are completely covered now by all the material that was taken from East Beach. My property is the first one, like I said. I know you mentioned that we don't have enough room. We did have the machines out there to push everything back. Every year I have the same layout from my telephone pole, which ends up being on town property that I didn't know when I bought the property. But the telephone pole out, I go about 30 feet, and then it naturally goes down towards the water. Right now, I have 32 feet. Once they pushed everything back and leveled it all out, I have 32 feet. I'm still gonna have to replenish a little bit, but it's still exactly where it is every year. So we didn't lose much. There is a couple that are gonna need to be nourished, but at the end of the day, we have 2 or 3, maybe 4 lots in the middle who have an abundance of material that have too much washed up, and they're gonna have to get rid of it because they can't go, into the water with it. I know you mentioned about the lots and how they're sized. I'm sure you know that in Massachusetts, the lots are sized by the low mean water tide. So that's where the lots go out to. When you do look at it, I have that massive rock in front of my property. My lot is 140 something feet deep, and if you walk it out to that rock, you're gonna be right about there. So the lots haven't changed. What has changed is the town has given us more and more of an issue to try to beach nourish, and that's what we're looking to do, is trying to get our lots where they're supposed to be legally. I know that the president, Kevin, went to the commissioner, conservation for Chris Capone, and he did approve 2 stones. A truckload of that stone is $1,800. We have drone footage of our material being not trucked off the road and onto the town beach. If you just count how many truckloads were taken away at $1,800 a load, there's a significant amount of money that is actually, taken from our property. I understand you said it was on municipal property, and that's the reason why it was taken away, but we park our cars on municipal property every day. No one takes our cars away. So trying to paint a picture just to say what's right, what's wrong, where we're at, but many of the lots that you say are gone, they're really not gone. They need to be nourished because we just had a storm. Just like it was in 2010 or 8, whenever it was. I mean, this is something that's gonna happen that we as owners have to deal with, and so does the town. I mean, a storm for the town is similar to a snowstorm when you have to remove it. It's a cost to the town, we understand it, but it's a road, like any other road in the town.
Did you say your lot goes to low tide?
Massachusetts taxes you on low mean tide. Your lot goes out to low mean tide. That is how you are taxed in Massachusetts.
It depends on where you are, because.
And if you look at any Massachusetts law, that's how it's explained.
It's different from the Point of Rocks west, because that was part of Providence Plantations, and they go by the colonial law that was in place. before they swapped that land.
I've actually got a copy of that, I'll share that with Michael. It's rather interesting how it shows the King James laws from 1641 and 1647 that are still on books.
That it's low tide?
That it goes right down to the low tide.
On that side of the harbor. On the other side of the harbor is to the high tide, like Rhode Island. So,
I've been down this road before.
so I guess the question is though, you can't put anything between the high tide and the low tide.
No, that's not true. We actually have a 2011 filing for the NOI, which in the filing has a narrative that states that we can go past the high tide.
It's called area, section 91.
Chapter 91.
Chapter 91, for nourishment, beach nourishment, by DEP.
And how is beach nourishment defined?
Has to be, anything can be put back as long as it meets the same type of material that is on the beach presently.
Light materials, which have been approved by the Conservation Commission. Like I told you earlier, I voted in the first 2 weeks ago today.
So the sand has to be an approved type of
It's a
sand?
type of beach sand. There's an actual type of beach sand to be used. Right. It's an approved sand. It's an approved stone, and obviously crushed seashells like many of us use on the beach.
And you can put that down to the low tide?
I'm not saying low tide. We can go past the high tide.
Yeah.
There are instances when you can go 10 feet. Well, the Chapter 91, there are instances when you go 10 feet past the mean low tide. If you look up the Mass State law, it will allow you to go. Right, it will allow you to go past the low mean tide.
Past the low mean?
Tide, right, which is
Yeah.
as low as it can go. You
But
go
you-
10 feet past. But
But
obviously,
none of
we're
us-
not looking to do that. We're looking
Right.
to keep the beach the way it's supposed to be. We're looking to push it back when it has to be pushed back, nourish it when it has to be nourished, and obviously fight what's happening. Like every other town in Massachusetts, New Hampshire,
So
in New Jersey.
between the high tide and the low tide, that's Chapter 91,
Correct.
you have to get a license, right?
That's part of the notice of intent and the order of conditions when you get your.
But isn't the Chapter 91 license a different thing than an NOI?
it allows you to go further than in the NOI.
It comes along with it. Do you have the documents, Dean, from when you was originally filed in 2011? No, you don't have it with you.
No, I think that Chapter 91 is a separate thing.
It is.
I mean, you present them both to conservation, but the state approves the Chapter 91, whereas the Conservation Commission approves the NOI. For instance, a dock has a
Correct.
Chapter 91 license. I think if you put anything in the state's water or over the state's water, you have to have a Chapter 91 license.
And so the private landowners, at their expense, are nourishing the beach with approval of the Concom. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct every year. We've
Every
done it
year.
every year.
But you can only do that to the high tide mark, right?
Sorry?
You can only do that to the previous high tide mark?
Correct, which we don't even go to that point. None of us have to go to the high tide mark to keep their lots. I nourish mine, I go 30 feet out, and the high tide is still 15, 20 feet away. The high tide.
The high tide is where we stop.
Right, exactly.
Is this year different? Are you going past high tide this year because of the storm?
No, because the tide mark hasn't changed.
Oh, all right.
We've been out there and observed for the last month. We all own that property. The seaweed and the cobble that is out in the water
Yeah.
is stopping right where it always stopped.
Okay,
So, based on this engineering data that I've got,
yeah,
it hasn't moved. If you
yeah,
refer back to this,
yeah,
it would give you the impression optically when you look at it because the ocean, the beach itself is sloped
yeah,
because you've got the height of the road.
yeah.
But when you sit there in normal circumstances, normal tide cycles, it's right where it used to be.
Gotcha. Okay.
So to spend time re-engineering it to try and say it's changed, which to me didn't make any sense when I saw it at a previous planning board meeting,
Yeah,
I scratched my head and said, we just had a storm. Obviously, it's going to be visually different because of the circumstances surrounding the entire situation. But the ocean in 2 storms all of a sudden didn't decide, how is it feasibly possible for a high tide not to change
Yeah.
heat?
Yeah.
It's just,
It doesn't happen. The only way what needs to happen is the beach needs to be nourished back to keep it looking and to bring the tide to where it was. I can tell you right now, we haven't put anything past, well, we haven't come within 10 feet of the high water mark due to conservation asking us to do so, and we did. And I literally looked at Mr. Capone and told him, you don't have an issue with that because I don't have the material to go out that far.
Yeah.
But that being said, the beach, I have 2 large stones on the sand, and they were exposed about 16 inches. And if you go there now, they're literally 7 to 8 inches exposed. It's already replenished 8 inches on its own without us having to do anything.
Yeah.
So I know it's dire. I know that it looks a lot worse from the outside, and I know that there's a lot of misconception and a lot of fallacies as to what happens at the beach. There are a lot of landowners who actually care about what they have, and I can share a 2-second story with you guys. A family of 4 today goes on vacation. They spend about $12,000 to $15,000. You have a lot on East Beach. You put your trailer there. You're there for those 6 months. I mean, I go on weekends, but it is a slice of heaven. The water is beautiful, and it is amazing. You can't get that anywhere else for the price we pay for those lots. So to take that away from people, it's going to be very hard for someone to grasp that. I've been there for 5 years, and I'm telling you, it's my best acquisition ever. Even with COVID, I think that I used it more than ever because there was nowhere else to go. I'm telling you, it is amazing. And I invite all of you to come down and take a look at it and enjoy it for yourselves. It is amazing in the summer. So that is the reason why I think it's going to be a real hardship to get it taken away from us. And I'm willing to stay there and put as much money as I can into it to renourish the beach as often as I can until the day that I literally say, okay, this is the time, and I'll walk away from it and say, I can't use it anymore, and give it for free back to the town.
So I don't think anybody's trying to take it away from anybody.
Yeah.
No, I understand
What we're
that.
trying to do is decide what's in the best interest of the town of Westport and property owners, and what is the plan for the future. And we can all see that the storms are getting different than they have been. I mean, I've never seen, we had 5 storms, they're all from the southeast. September, November, December, and January. And we had 5. 2 of them were devastating.
Right.
But all 5 of them were pretty impactful. I mean, they didn't come up quite as high. The one storm, you're talking about 20-foot waves, at the Block Island buoy, it was 30-foot waves, is what they measured. So, you know, East Beach isn't the only one that got hammered. I mean,
The
Elephant
Jersey
Rock
as well.
Beach is,
And Hampton Beach, yeah.
there's no sand, it's all rocks.
one point to add, and then I'm gonna shut up because we're gonna keep this thing into the ground, and all gonna wanna go home. If we're nourishing that area of the road, and for the whole entire East Beach for that matter, we're actually working with the town, somewhat at our expense, to help protect your road, which is a vital source of commerce in the south end of this town. You've got restaurants that are served by it, commercial fishermen that use it, tourism. That road, in my, access to the state reservation. I know there was talk in one of the meetings, well, gee, maybe we don't fix it. That might have been speculatory, just throwing stuff around the table.
Yeah.
But did anybody take into account the economic impact that it would have?
Yeah, we've thought about that, yeah. But we've also thought about what's really gonna happen, 50 years from now.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet, and there's still, a couple generations can enjoy stuff, but eventually, that road, Atlantic Avenue, Beach Avenue, a lot of the areas in town are gonna be underwater. So, unless things drastically change, I don't think that that's hyperbole. So, what is the, we're supposed to give advice to the select board on what to do both now and long range. And the long range aspect is, how do you deal with what eventually will happen? And do you do one of those three things? I don't think you do the first one. I don't think anybody wants to do that, nor could anybody afford to. But the one that John is talking about, where you have an option, perhaps if somebody's gonna fund it, to gradually sell those lots to conservation. I think that's maybe an option for some people. And I think some people, like yourself, will stay there till the bitter end until it's gone. So that's okay too. Right? So, but help us decide what to tell them.
Any other comments?
Anybody else?
Thank you all very much for being here, even if you didn't say anything, just coming and listening. We all really appreciate your being here. We all learn a lot every time. So thank you, and I hope, you know, this problem isn't going away, so we're not solving it all tonight. And so I hope you all stay engaged, whether it's Planning Board or the Climate Resilience Committee. These are not easy issues. You look what happened in Maine, you know, the fishing industry, it all got wiped out by the storm. We're a little lucky compared to what happened in Maine. So this is a tough issue with high stakes that affect people's lives. No easy answers. So the more of us that try and put our brains together to figure this stuff out, the better the answers will be, because they're not easy answers. So thank you for coming and helping us be smart. You know, we have a better shot when you're all in the room.
I want to thank you guys for giving us as much time as you've been presented with tonight to share with you our feelings and our wish and desire to solve this thing together. And I'm going to give you my name, address, and information. Thank you, gentlemen.
I didn't know that was part of it. I mean, I saw it on the agenda. Somebody must have talked it up and said, hey, come to this meeting. I thought they were here for
One thing about having a Russian paper
I think they have that Mrs. Markov has been given an offer to
When you said a lot of acres, I looked, because
there.
they have
you think it's been taken yet?
which are out in the water.
You sure? It might still be. Until they actually.
I basically got priced to that grease field, it's over all the land, 20 feet down the street.
And I heard that.
It's all public way.
They're even leaving us trailers there over the weekend.
It'd be interesting to see what that documentation is about, you know.
Yeah, all the NOIs.
They have
How much of everything we heard is true.
I worked a lot more.
It's possible.
Okay,
I like what's across the street.
we're still meeting. Hello?
Oh, sorry.
We're still meeting, so if you want to talk, could you take it out in the hallway?
Now, we're gonna discuss minutes, so it's gonna get really exciting.
Okay, next up is meeting minutes from January 18th.
Mr. Chair, that was the work session.
Yes.
I've read them. I think they reflect what we did with zoning, so I would move we accept the minutes of January 18th.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I wasn't there, so.
Meeting minutes of January 23rd.
We did a lot of continuing on January 23rd.
Sure
Yes.
did.
I think that was reflected in the minutes. I move that we accept the minutes of January 23rd, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Invoices, East Bay Media zoning bylaw amendments.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the bill to East Bay Media for $328.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Topics not reasonably anticipated, 48 hours ahead. Anybody have anything? Short and long-term planning?
We got lots.
Short-term, I'd like to go.
We got lots of it going on.
We got lots of long-term planning, but I'm not sure that it likes to me. Do you have anything?
I don't have anything.
Anybody?
I guess we could, as far as the pump stations go, Bob, I talked to the two property owners in the next phase, and they want to be added to our next agenda. They're in favor, and we just need a little bit of clarification.
Right.
Say that again?
We've done the sewer project. Look,
You want to go on to?
Mandy's been actually talking to the landowners.
Pumping stations, yeah.
Well, it was used as an excuse on why we didn't do it now. Those of the intent on the whole corridor, because they said they weren't
yeah.
finalized, but.
Okay, well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.